we're past the point where good intentions are an acceptable level of action. We got to actually do something, challenge each other to go to a new level. I mean, what we're really talking about, stopping climate change from becoming irreversible and catastrophic, that will require the biggest, most ambitious collective project that humanity has ever taken on. That's why it's so alarming, but also why it's so exciting, because if we pull this off, with the US leading the way, it's going to be something we'll be proud of for centuries. The resources that we have thanks to this bipartisan infrastructure deal will make it possible for us to modernize our transportation systems in the U.S. For the first time here at this international conference, there's an entire day dedicated to transportation because it is such a big part of the challenge, the single biggest source of greenhouse gas emissions in our economy. And that's every part of the transportation puzzle, from how people get to work to maritime shipping, aviation, and everything in between. But in each of those areas, we can take action at home and we can make commitments with our international partners. That's exactly what we're here to do. There's a lot more to the story than electric cars. We're excited about electric cars, but you shouldn't have to have a car. You shouldn't have to take 2 tons of metal with you everywhere you go. And that means making sure that there are better public transit options in large communities and small communities. The truth is, we've gone a long time without making the investments we should as a country. This bill changes that. It's the biggest federal investment in public transit that we've ever had. That means making it safer, cleaner, more affordable for communities to invest in things like electric buses that are going to also make a big difference from a climate perspective. More accessible. A lot of people with disabilities who depend on public transit have found that stations and systems are still not accessible. We can change so much of that with the dollars that are in this bill. It's one of the most exciting things. And that transit section is really a climate section too, because the more people can take transit, the less congestion and the less emissions. So a lot of the highways that are in our communities today were built in a period, especially across the 50s and 60s, where sometimes intentionally they were set up to divide a white area of town from a black area of town, or went through what had been a thriving minority neighborhood. It's a tough history to face, but we should face it, and even more importantly, we should fix it. We can use, just as federal dollars were used to divide or to segregate, now we can use them to reconnect and to unite, and it makes everyone better off. We are running out of time. We're already seeing accelerating impacts of climate change. And when you look at something like electric vehicles, which I'm excited to work on, they're definitely pound for pound cleaner and greener, but at the end of the day, they're only as clean as the electricity going into them, which is why we also need to pair that with a stronger grid and with cleaner sources of utility scale energy. We'll have to go through some growing pains, but it's going to be worth it because, again, we're already going through the pain of seeing increased severe extreme weather, things that used to happen once in 100 years happening on a routine basis. That's what we absolutely can't afford to allow to continue.